uh, some public information about my experience with getting on one of the Asian sites that's pretty popular. Met somebody some 8 months ago, and within a day, we were talking and have done that for the last 8 months, FaceTiming and texting one another through Messenger. It was very lovely, my experience. I really started to grow very fond of this person. She was very honest in letting me know that she was married but separated. And I really didn't know the dynamics of that because I didn't, all I did was just want to meet a good woman from another country by going to YouTube, and it says that's where the best wife material is at. So, anyway, making a long story short, I'll try to. After that 8 year experience, she started to, in the last couple of weeks, telling me that her husband had COVID and had diabetes and high blood pressure, and that he was going to be coming to the house to visit his children and actually stay there during a respite period, and that they were going to nurse him back to health. Uh, Come to find that he didn't have the COVID. He may have high blood pressure and diabetes. Also, she had mentioned that his mistress that he had left her for was complaining because he was impotent and, very dissatisfied with that arrangement. What they did, uh, or what I did anyway, doing my homework, was I found out, with not knowing, I was very naive to the rules, that in the Philippines there is no divorce, as well as in the Vatican, and that is not anytime soon going to change. Uh, and the only option that they would have is an annulment, which takes, I think it's 3 to 7 years, but could take longer. And the down payment or the cost of that is 10,000 American dollars. So a lot of these women, although they say they're separated and have children, but they're not with their husbands, it doesn't matter because they're going to be married to them for life, even though they live separate. And as islanders, they can, and they do, go to other people and start families and have a relationship. However, you as an American or a foreigner could go to that country, and if the husband so decides to show up at your door and tell you, that's my wife, they could extort monies from you if you had anything in the bank, especially for those men that are retired and are extremely flattered that somebody younger than them would show an interest. And then they're going to assume immediately that you have money. Um, so I wanted to say this because as of late, this person, let's say Inde, uh, happened to inform me that her husband had the COVID, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., and that her 16-year-old son was very adamant that his father was welcome in the home uh, because he is now the man of the house and he says how it's going to go. And that she would too be taking care of him to get him back on his feet. Uh, and come to find, he's a police officer in that country for the airport, a guard of some sort. But anyway, and he tried to let me know that that he was one that cheated on her, and that there's no reconciliation that's in the near future. However, he was only coming to the house to have her sign some loan contracts, and that he would be staying there for a time, whether it's a short visit, a couple of weeks, vacation, I don't know. Um, but she lied to me about it by saying that he was impotent and that that's why him and his mistress were having some issues as well. And I don't believe that that was at all the case. I don't believe he had COVID. I believe that it's just custom that if the father wants to visit his wife and stay with the children, although he would be sleeping with the boys, uh, he would still be under the roof, and as an honored guest, she would be tending to his needs as well as she does her children, making his dinners, cleaning his clothes, etc. And I was just very uncomfortable with that because although I was informed from the onset that divorce is not something that they allow in the Philippines, but they do have annulments. But even with an annulment, it's I think it's 3 to 7 years and could take longer. And I've heard even up to 1,000,000 pesos and or like 20,000 American dollars. And it can be denied because the criteria for annulment is that you have to be able to prove from the onset of the relationship that it was not only a mistake, but that there was something, mentally wrong with this person or whatever. They don't give you a divorce or an annulment because your husband cheats on you or commits adultery, or if he even is abusive physically and or mentally. That's not a grounds for divorce or annulment. So any American or Australian, Canadian that is going to the Philippines and is meeting up with somebody that is hoping that you're going to pay for that annulment, which at the end of the day could just be denied because the grounds are not substantiated. And they will take your money and keep you on, hold for that length of time. And at the end of the day, it could be denied. So if you're an older man looking for someone half your age or close to your age, the odds are is that you're going to go before them, and you could easily be arrested if the husband decides to say you're with my wife and committing adultery. And most likely you would be extorted or taken to the bank and told you better pay up some money and get back on that plane and go away empty-handed. Well, 8 months of being told mahal kita, almost from the very beginning of us knowing one another, mahal kita lagi actually, which is forever, and I expressed my upset about her husband staying in the house with her, and he happened to text me to reassure me through Messenger. We weren't friends, but somehow he was able to send some information and said that she was a very nice lady and that they don't have love for each other that way anymore, so I have nothing to worry about, etc. However, I just wasn't comfortable. But I responded, what of this cost towards an annulment are you going to contribute? He said nothing. Now, this person, although owns a Sari Sari store and selling peanuts and ice waters and eggs and making pesos, is so far from the mark as far as being able to afford even a plane ticket to the United States, or none, or any less the cost of an annulment. $10,000, $20,000 to them is like it's never going to happen. So I say all this to say, be careful, do your homework, always ask if they have a certification of non-marriage. If they say they're separated, most likely they're married, and the likelihood of, as nice as they are too, they are like Medusa. You're going to fall for it because they're attractive, they're young, and they'll entertain you that way. And then at the end of the day, you might wind up in a very bad way. And then the very next day of me telling her I wasn't happy with that arrangement, with her husband staying in the house with her children and her, she just said, okay, if you don't like it, that's just too bad. And that mahal kita lagi stuff went out the window. And so out of curiosity, I went to the website where I first met her, and there she was again, within a day of me not being, happy about that arrangement. And it was because she lied, because her husband said, what? When I said you were going there for a respite and for them to tend to your needs, that wasn't the case. So the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, apparently, and she was just totally exposed. This woman has a beautiful smile, a lovely spirit, and I would have never thought in a million years that I wouldn't, wind up with this person. However, for me to invest monies like that, only to have it, kick back and I'm without, a wife or without a partner, or go there and buy property or a place for us to stay on the sneak, of course, because she would be also then committing adultery, that I would be subject to arrest. I would be buying property in her name and not mine. And then if I had a short lifespan, that her and her husband could move into a nice little place. And they don't, as much as you wouldn't think, because they are beautiful women, have wonderful smiles and a nice spirit. You wouldn't think that that's the way it would go. But again, I saw this person the next day right back on the site. And her, because I would ask questions about all these things like no divorce, the annulment. I was doing a lot of research and calling embassies, etc. I just don't think it's a good idea to go there and not at least require that if you're going to go there looking for a spouse or a girlfriend, that they would be able to prove to you that they have either the annulment and or a certificate of never being married, or you're going to wind up in a very hurtful, your heart's going to be broken. And even though she assured me she'd never do that, she did that within a drop of a pin. And I've been doing a lot of looking on YouTube, etc., and trying to find out as much as I can about the country, the people, their customs. And I know that family is a big thing and a big deal, but I think that it's a little excessive. I don't know that the average person could handle a husband coming over and being allowed to spend the night, even if you were married to this person. If he had children with her and there was an annulment, I guess they would expect that that should be okay. But I don't think the average Western person, or maybe European or Canadian or any type of foreigner, would be okay with that. But to them, that's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, they just move on to the next one. It almost seems like the women there, because there is no retirement, pension, unemployment, that they're looking for somebody that is going to provide for them and or their family for the rest of their lives, and they will say and do anything. Their smiles are as sweet as the sunshine or the sunsets. And I told her that often, and they are. And I just got pulled in and pulled in and pulled in and kept believing what I wanted to believe, that I could possibly have someone like that in my life that would be good to me and beautiful and attentive and care about me. But she showed me, after 8 months of consistent Mahalkita Lagis, consistent, that in the very next day, like if I were to have died, she'd have walked over my corpse if there was nothing in my pocket to take, and just went on to the next one. Because it feels like what their main concern is who's going to provide for my family, because they don't have those provisions in those countries. I hate to say that. I'm not saying all Filipinas are like that, but I wish that those sites that are allowing them to go out there and advertise and show those beautiful smiles, that they would say you have to be single to do this. You cannot be a married woman and hope that some guy is going to come here and be with you and pay for this because you don't have the money, and then at the end of the day it may not happen at all anyway. So, if you really don't want to get your heart broken, or you think that going somewhere else where you might get more attention from the women, and you will, but you're getting the attention doesn't seem like it's genuine or it's sincere. It's more of, what can you do for me? And they'll love you long time, but it's not long enough, and it doesn't seem like it's deeply rooted. What's so deeply rooted is their connection with their children, husband, family members, etc. And I understand that that's everywhere, but not when you're looking at getting with a male or a female. You're going to mate up. You'd want to feel like you have some worth and I think is like they would say in our country, you're only good as your last sale. It is after 8 months, 8 months of being, on the phone and dedicated to one person and talking about the hopes of, possibly marriage. It turned out that it was just a joke. Because I didn't like the fact that she told the story of her husband coming to the house sickly, and that the boys were worried and they wanted to take care of him. And then I guess when I told her I wasn't happy with that concept, she notified her husband, and he messaged me to tell me that he has no affiliation with her other than he's the provider of her, children's needs, etc. But he is also the honored guest in her house. And if that's the way they do it, and you would be comfortable with that, while you're here and she's there and her husband's under the same roof and they're best friends, you know, it just doesn't, I don't get it. And they don't get it that I don't get it, I guess, that I should be okay with that and be willing, without his contribution to the annulment, or hers, that I would be expected to pay that kind of American money just to be with this person. They are pretty. They have beautiful smiles. They seem to have a lovely spirit. But what shocked me the most, and I put my face back on there too, by the way, but I did, and I always have in my profile, that there is some criteria that has to be met as far as you have to be single, or the annulment has to be already in process. Like, it's not something that I or anybody else should have to pay for, and that you have enough reason and or grounds to get an annulment. But absolutely, absolutely not is divorce allowed in the Philippines. So these women, I think they're catfishing, gold diggers, looking for the hero that's going to come from another country and save the day with his, hard-earned money. And although they won't give you that impression, they'll tell you that they don't want anything. I think that we do it out of guilt. We start to see how little they have in comparison to maybe a Western person. Even the poorest of people here most likely have more than they do. They don't have the heart of gold that I would assume that they have. They have a smile that'll pull you in, like Medusa. You'll get pulled in, and then it'll turn your heart into stone. And then again, the very next day, she's right back there at it, knowing all that I know, and that I let her know that I know it, and that it's not a good thing to have husbands back in the house to spend the night or to stay weeks or months with the family, while you have a boyfriend in another country that's expected to come up with that kind of coin on a maybe. Because from what I understand, annulment is not easy either, and it's a very long process. So if you're in your 50s, 60s, and you're thinking that you're going to get with a 37-year-old woman, and have to go to that kind of length, you better not get caught in the bed with her. Because if her husband wants money, he could show up at any time or have somebody else, and I'm most certain that they'll probably walk you to the bank first before they take you to jail and make you pull out anything that you may have in there, and send you on your way if they don't put you in jail. So that's not worth traveling 24 hours to the Philippines to meet a smiling person that you know as little about as what they're going to tell you. So you definitely want a certificate of proof of being single. They have those there. I guess it goes through the embassy in Manila. And if they are honest and just telling you they are divorced, but they don't get along, and he's with somebody else, and I'm looking for a romantic warrior, you better have full pockets and a lot of time on your hands, or you're just wasting your time. But the biggest thing, much to my chagrin, and the biggest thing that I would have to say that I hated the most about all of it was the very next day, she's right back in line trying to do it to somebody else. And maybe that guy, not me, but that guy will go right along with that and get his, not only his heart broken, but his pockets will be emptied. And you would never suspect it. I'm telling you, they are attractive. A lot of them, a lot of them, though, are married and separated with children, and they need a benefactor, or they need somebody there to take care of them, because some of their husbands don't. Some do. But irregardless, if divorce is not granted, you could never own property there. You can't work there unless you're married to a Filipina. Otherwise, you buy property there and get caught with somebody that's married, you're going to lose that investment very quickly. And I understand too, from watching YouTube channels, that you have to have resources if you're going to retire in the Philippines, to the tune of $10,000 to $50,000 in the bank that has to be in there at all times. So in the event of anything happening to you, that you're never going to be a burden to the country. So those requirements aren't imposed on them coming here. However, you going there, they are. So that's a big risk that you take, because again, if she's married, I would bet you a dime to a dollar that at one time or another you're going to be walked to the bank by some magistrate there, and they're going to pull as much out as they can and put you on a plane or put you in jail. So that's a big risk for a smile, and for something that you could most likely find right here in your own country. So I'm not saying that they're not beautiful and that they don't have good hearts. I'm just saying you better be very, very careful. And again, what hurt me the most is the next day, after hearing for 8 months every day, Mahal kita lagi, which I believe means I love you forever, that she was right back at it. And knowing all that I know, because I inquired with her and asked her about it, and we were very hopeful. But the more I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, I realized that this wasn't a mountain to climb. This was an impossibility. And then to tell me, I'm being very redundant, I know, I'm very upset about it, that she was right back at it again. So somebody else is going to get it. If I got away, that's a good thing. However, there's going to be some fool that's going to believe that this is a possibility, and these women are attractive and young and very attentive. It would seem hardworking. I don't take none of that away from them. I just wish that I could find an honest person. And although she was, by telling me her husband's coming there, they throw in those little lies like he's impotent because that's why he's leaving his mistress, or he had the COVID, and he's got diabetes, sickly, and then when she said his liver, oh, ow, 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 kidney stones, that does not, give anyone cause to be sleeping in a two-room place. Probably no shower curtain on the shower, and everyone's just walking around like family members, but yet they're not lovers. That's okay, and it's okay also that you have to pay, for the annulment or the divorce if it were allowed, because they're not going to do it. They don't have that kind of money, and if they do, you have to wait a long time. 3 to 7 years, could be even longer. And if it's contested, or if there's property owned and children involved, it may not even happen at all. So don't get your hopes up. Don't put your heart out there. And if all these women want is a savior, or somebody that's got those kind of resources that would be willing to put it up just to lay with somebody else, that's a very expensive, I'm going to say it, piece of ass, because that's all they got. They don't got nothing else. Some of them are educated. She's working towards a bachelor's, this person, but it was held off because of the COVID situation, and it's in hospitality resources, which is in hotel management, and I don't think that there's going to be a lot of people visiting the Philippines anytime soon with this global crisis that we're going through. So they don't have the money that it's necessary to get a divorce. And maybe that is imposed on them as a people or a country because they don't believe in it. And there's no reason to divorce somebody. Actually, it's biblical, and I respect that. And I think if you are in it, you better stay in it, because there's no getting out, and you shouldn't be reaching out to others and stomping on their hearts or taking advantage by giving them the hope or the possibility that you can come there and not only be with them, but then pay for that type of process. 7 to 10 years, 10,000 US dollars could be 20, up to 1,000,000 pesos, which I believe is like 20,000 American dollars, and then it could be denied because the criteria isn't wife beating or abusive speech or adultery. That's not grounds for divorce. So beware. Ask a lot of questions. Don't put your heart out there. Don't send money. I didn't send nothing but a birthday card with a little bit of money in it, but I even regret that. What do you do? Live and learn. So this is like a public warning for those that are just thinking, wow, 100 women just hit me up, and I don't get attention like that from the girls in America, that many all at once. But you're going to pay one way or the other, if not only for your trip there, but then not really knowing if they didn't have that certificate of non-marriage, you're going to get yourself into some trouble. And you're doing all that for a person that less than 24 hours went right back at it to get another one, because I stepped away from it when I heard that the husband was going to come live with them, and then he actually texted me, and I didn't ask him to. Maybe she said, let him know that we're not a couple anymore, and he went ahead and did that. But I had mentioned that she said that he was coming there for a respite, and because he was almost on his deathbed and the kids wanted to see him, which was not at all the case, and that he was impotent, and that wasn't either the case. So he's going to be under the roof with his children, and if they so choose, because they're married and they want to go off into the bedroom and take care of some old time boom boom, they're probably going to do that, and you'd be none the wiser, because they're better liars than they are honest. They tell some truth, but not all the truth, because if they told all the truth, most likely you're going to question that or say, I'm not on board, or that red flag is just kind of squish the deal. So I think that those sites should somehow screen those people and say, if you're not really single, you shouldn't be on these sites. Being separated or married and separated is not good. And I mean, the woman was very attractive, but that's how they get you, with a smile.